Hello, all of you wonderful, beautiful, loving, gorgeous, amazing, creative, brilliant people. How are you today? I love every one of you. And I wanted to talk about what I believe to be a failure uh, that seemingly has really been passed down from generation to generation. And it's not teaching our children how to deal with emotions. Uh, I know I do not believe I was taught very well how to deal with emotions. I don't know very many people who were, but once we're able to understand that our emotions are, in fact, ours, they're not anybody else's, nobody can make us feel a type of way again. Uh, so we're in full control of our emotions. So if, an individual says something that quote unquote makes you angry, makes you sad, makes you irritable, whatever the case may be, you can find the issue within self as to how they may have been able to affect you, because really nobody can affect us aside from ourselves, as we are essentially sovereign beings. And there's also another part about the emotional aspect is the chakras, where the emotions actually come from. We can feel emotion in our body through the chakra points. However, I at least was so, I guess, used to rejecting and ignoring and pretending my emotions weren't occurring that I had never felt them really before. Here or there, I would. But when you actually attempt to, you know, let the emotion come and feel it, and not try to just simply repress it right off the bat, you are able to notice some of that. And we are able to heal. We are able to become emotionally intelligent. We are able to have compassion for others. We are able to love. We are able to be happy. We are able to be content. Happiness is a bit of a kind of a misnomer in many ways. It isn't necessarily about happiness per se, as happiness could be a fleeting emotion, just as all of them are. So we can't continuously chase any emotion or any state of being, because they just are. It's not like, well, this thing made me happy, I'm gonna keep. That's essentially what we do if we're basing our happiness off a car or a home or a job or anything else. We're essentially using uh, um, a process the same way as people essentially use drugs, as far as chasing an emotion and chasing a feeling. And obviously, if you're when you have your ups, you're going to have your downs too. But it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to have negative emotions. It's okay to have negative thoughts. It's okay to even have harmful thoughts sometimes, as long as you are able to recognize the toxicity and harmfulness in those thoughts, and own them, and obviously, hopefully, definitely don't harm anybody, hurt anybody. And harming somebody doesn't mean just punching or physical violence. That also means saying something intentionally, to hurt somebody. That's the definition of harm. You've said something intentionally, and it has hurt another individual. And I used to always believe, if somebody hits you, hit them back. If somebody does this, hit them. And that was my justification. Or if somebody, says something that offends you greatly, punch them in the face. Now I understand that that is really brutish behavior, because I am not going to allow somebody to have such an effect over me that they are able to get me to become violent, I mean, violence is totally unnecessary. We have the ability to communicate in a, pretty advanced way. We're able to, and especially with the communication, a lot of times I've noticed it's really just different communication styles have misunderstandings. So I really did like in therapy, the one thing we did speak of was when you're, having a conversation with somebody and they are misunderstanding or misrepresenting what you're saying, instead of allowing them to do that, they can, say, well, this is what you're saying, but this is what I'm hearing. And then we can get out our own, misrepresentations and get our actual point across. Because I know I've been guilty of somebody says one thing and I take it to mean blah, 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 whatever it is against me, and it's a personal slight against me. And we can do that. We can find personal slights in everything everybody has said or says or is going to say. But the truth is, there are no personal slights, because anything anybody says is just their stuff, especially about another individual. If it says somebody's fat, ugly, stupid, whatever it is, they are only speaking of themselves. There's something within them that bothers them about that trait or quality or action or whatever the case it may be. But yeah, so I believe that teaching our children emotional responses, how to recognize emotions, how to deal with emotions is extremely, extremely important. I mean, that should definitely be in school, but it seems school is more concerned with creating somebody who sits in their seat and listens. I think that is asinine, because asking somebody to blindly listen to another individual is ridiculous, because even the first rules according to the commandments was, do not bow, do not pray to false deities. So what does that mean? That doesn't just mean do not, covet a being other than God, although it does mean that in one way. It also means to not give your power to an individual. And that's my issue with the expert thing, the whole expert thing. It's like, and by expert thing, I mean when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and they're like, well, this person's the foremost expert in this arena or whatever. It's like, okay, well, I can form my own opinion. I don't need to speak to some expert. I am more than capable, if given all of the information, to make an informed decision based off of that information. And not only am I capable of that, you are also capable of that. The issue is when we do not have all the information. That is called ignorance. So if we have one piece of information and we form a judgment of, really anything, we are ignorant in that moment, because we don't have enough information to make a judgment. That's why they say, let he who's without sin cast the first stone, because we could never know what somebody else has been through. And we may say, oh, well, I could have blah, 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 and I would never, and blah, blah, blah. But the issue with that is that the things that we would never do can happen. How do I know? Well, I have a 5-year-old boy, and I would never in a million years leave that kid, and yet I am not able to see him at all. So it was an experience for me, and I hope he's okay, and I hope this doesn't cause him too much trauma, because that's what being separated from loved ones does to people. It causes them trauma. So and I'm not innocent in the matter. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I don't think causing children harm is a good idea. Like, I think that that's like the last possible thing we should do. Although I am not the frickin' person who creates the rules or creates the punishments or whatever the case may be. But other than that, I love all of you. Hopefully you have an amazing night. And I'll see you again very soon. Bye.